The idea behind the Pentateuch is the books in the Bible called Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Those 5 books are called the Pentateuch. You might also, and I kind of unpacked this last week, you might also realize and recognize that it's kind of, you could read the Pentateuch as a single book, or the book of Moses, which is a little bit of how I've been approaching, honestly, my study, is what is God trying to tell us through these 5 books, or this singular book called the Pentateuch, which is early on in the Bible. You know, as soon as you open this baby up, you'll be engaged with Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Keeping the Pentateuch as our title for the series was meant to kind of, both be, I don't know, we just kept it, because that's kind of what it's called. So instead of kind of making it sound a little better or something, we're just like, no, we're going to engage the Pentateuch, and let's just kind of learn what that means and what that looks like. But what does this have to do with today? That's a good question. We're going to kind of dive into that a little bit, okay? But today, just for our opening reading, you might say, I'm going to read from Genesis chapter 4. Genesis chapter 4, starting at verse 17. And then I'm going to read, I'm going to pray, and then we're going to dive into this a little bit today, okay? Now, this is an odd reading. This is an odd pick, honestly. So to kind of follow this, but recognize I'm not going to necessarily preach this specific text as much as kind of unpack what this text is kind of referring to in the context of the whole Pentateuch. Now, Cain, okay, let's just stop for a second. Who is Cain? Cain is the first son of Adam and Eve. So God makes Adam and Eve, and then they have a son named Cain. There's Cain and Abel. That's who this is. Cain knew his wife, so there must have been some marriage of sisters and stuff early on, or how that all worked out. I don't get all that. But Cain knows his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. And when he built a city, he called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad fathered Mehuel, and Mehuel fathered Methuselah, and Methuselah fathered Lamech. And Lamech took 2 wives. This is the first kind of instance of polygamy that takes place here. And already we begin to see this kind of breakdown of how God instituted marriage earlier on in Genesis chapter 1, 2, and 3. So he takes 2 wives. Already he's going kind of south. Then the name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. Ada bore Jabal, and he was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. His brother's name was Jabal. He was the father of all those who play the lyre and pipe. Zillah also bore Tubal Cain. He was the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron. The sister of Tubal Cain was Naamah, and Lamech said to his wives. Now Lamech is the great-great-great-grandson of Cain, according to this little lineage thing, okay? And Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice, listen up. You wives of Lamech, listen to what I say. I have killed a man for wounding me. I killed a young guy just for striking me. If Cain's revenge is 7-fold, then Lamech's is 77-fold. Let's pray. We're going to dig into that a little bit, okay? Lord, we thank you. We thank you for your word. And we trust now, Lord, that as we've fed on you, Jesus, yourself, your body and your blood, as we've been encouraged and strengthened by that, we trust, Lord, that your Spirit is present. You say where 2 or more are gathered, there you are too. So we trust you're here, and we want to hear your voice now, God. We want to hear you speak to us. So I pray, Jesus, for myself, that I would slowly disappear up here and that you, Jesus, would just appear, that you would become the main thing, that you would receive all praise and honor and glory. We're not here to hear from Seth. We don't care about that. We don't care about what he has to say. We care about what you want to say. So, Lord, we trust that you will speak to us now through your word. It's an incredible privilege, Lord, that you would want to use me to say what you want said today. So help me to not overstep where your Spirit is leading. Lord, help me not to say any more than what needs said and not a single thing less than what needs said. Stir up our hearts, God, that it wouldn't be a word that just enters our ears, but it'd be a word that enters our hearts. Shape us and mold us and change us through this time. We pray this boldly in Jesus' name. Amen. The Pentateuch, okay, these first 5 books, the Pentateuch has a major problem. The Pentateuch has a major problem. The problem is, and this is kind of what we're going to be looking at today, is mankind's rebellion against God. That's the problem. Last week, go listen to last week's message, I kind of presented this idea that God is the main character early on of the Pentateuch and obviously the rest of the Bible, even to today, that his work and his activity are so vital for how we think about life and all that kind of stuff. But the problem that we face in the Pentateuch early on is mankind's rebellion against God. It's rebellious. You see Adam and Eve rebelling against God's word and doing something that God had said, don't do that. They went over their limits. And now, in chapter 4 there we see, we didn't read it, but you can, if you have your Bible, you'll see that. Cain calls his brother out into the field and he kills him. And then Cain, who kills him, and God speaks to that situation. A few generations later, this guy Lamech does this thing of getting with 2 wives, and then he kills a guy and brags about it, and even kind of highlights, somehow it got passed down through mankind's sinfulness, that what Cain did, his revenge was almost looked at as a good thing or maybe a positive thing against killing his brother Abel. And now Lamech boasts and says, my killing is even going to be 77 times more vengeful and better. You begin to see early on in the Bible mankind's heart and rebellion against God. And I think that word is a good word. Is the Bible primarily about superheroes that we look to and we think, wow, look at those guys, that's who we should try to be like? Or is the Bible primarily about people in rebellion against God and God still loving them and being gracious to them and working in their particular situations? It's 2 different ways of reading the Bible, isn't it? I just had somebody recently reach out to me and ask me some questions about specifically Jacob in the Bible. And there's a guy in Genesis here named Jacob. And he was asking about, why would God, it seems like God kind of helps people that are doing good, and then he smites down people that are doing bad. And I kind of challenged his reading of the text, and I said, well, it almost seems to me that primarily the Pentateuch, the Bible, is about mankind's rebellion against God, and yet God continues to still work with them and love them and be gracious to them and meet them in the midst of that. That's 2 completely different ways of reading the Bible. Some of you read the Bible still through the lens of, these are people that I'm supposed to emulate. So you get to a text like, Abraham taking 2 wives or something like that, and you think, okay, that must be okay because it's in the Bible. And I say, you might not be reading that through the right lens. You following me? That's a real challenge for some of us. And I'd probably look at it and be like, no, it doesn't mean it's okay. It means they're a bunch of sinners rebelling against God that God still continues to use and work with and love. I want to point you to our website, okay? I want to point you to our website, not because this is so great or something. I just want to highlight that this even exists. Some of you don't even know this exists. If you go to our website, I'm going to it right now, and go up to Start Here and What We Believe, this is what we say. I'm just going to read this, okay? This is just something that was put together years ago. You know how you go to a lot of church websites and it says, what do we believe? This is what we believe about the Bible. Boom. This is what we believe about God. Boom. This is what we believe about Jesus. Boom. This is what we believe about salvation. Boom. That's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. I wanted to make something that would be more story-like, especially that could speak to disconnected people. People that wanted to just want to hear the story of reality. This is kind of what I would suggest is the story of kind of the Bible. Listen to this. And I just want to point out that we use this word rebel. We believe, the story of God. The story of God, the story of the world, the story of you. We believe that this whole story of creation, everything from angels to Adam, got started by the triune God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Though he created everything good and perfect, humankind rebelled against him. As a result, all human beings are born in rebellion against God. A rebellion so complete that we are incapable of making things right again. For this reason, God sent his Son to be born in the midst of our rebellion, yet not join in it. This God-man, Jesus of Nazareth, lived in perfect obedience and love for his Father so that he might be the firstborn of a new humanity. I picked up on this last week. Of a new humanity that was no longer in rebellion with its creator. We are born into this new humanity when we are born again by water and the Spirit of Jesus given freely to all. As part of this new humanity, we still struggle with rebellion and our old humanity until Jesus returns again. And when he does come, he will restore all of creation to perfection where God dwells with his people for all of eternity. This is why we look forward to his return with expectant joy, even as we face today's trials, suffering, and brokenness, which are the product of our rebellion. In the meantime, Jesus promises to be with us. He continues to speak to us, leading and guiding us through his church and his word. And he tells us to share with people everywhere the good news of all he has done and has yet to do. I don't know. Does that make sense? I kind of like it. I want to highlight, though, that rebellion against God. Rebellion against God is something we begin to see already early on in the Pentateuch. Let me show you. Go to Genesis. If you got Genesis 3, I'm going to just cruise through this fast. Genesis chapter 3, you have Adam and Eve rebelling against God. Genesis chapter 4, Cain kills Abel. Lamech murders somebody who just strikes him. The guy slaps him and Lamech murders him and boasts of it. Takes 2 wives. Genesis 5, humanity is just corrupt and humanity is just going downhill fast. The story of Noah comes up. Genesis 11, the Tower of Babel and the pride of the people at the Tower of Babel rebelling against God. Instead of being fruitful and multiplying and going forward, they try to consolidate and come together, and we're going to take care of each other. We don't need God. Genesis 12, Abraham, the great patriarch. Well, Abraham didn't do anything wrong, did he? Well, go read some of his stuff. Abraham lies and puts Sarah in incredible danger. Genesis 16, Abraham takes things and God's promise into his own hands. Ishmael's born. Genesis 18 through 19. Sodom, the city of Sodom and Lot and the sin that takes place in the midst of that whole story. Genesis 19. That's kind of a PG-13 story. Lot and his daughters. Genesis 21. Sarah and her hatred for Hagar. Genesis 25 through 33, Jacob's deceitfulness, and the issues between him and Esau, and the family dynamics that are way messed up. Messed up more than a lot of your families. I mean, some of you are like, I get it, that's my family. Some of us got some messed up families. Go read Jacob, how screwed up they were. Favoritism being played. The deceit of Jacob in his heart and the evil that's there. Genesis 37, Joseph's pride. The terrible family dynamics. You see generational sin being passed on. As Joseph's family rebels against God in their own ways. Genesis 38 through 39, the story of Judah and Tamar. And Potiphar's wife, the next story right after that. And the sexual sin that's there and how those get handled by Joseph and how Judah handles that and how that might be a turning point for him. But the brokenness and sexual sin that takes place in those two chapters. Then you move to, that's just in Genesis. The Pentateuch's got 5 books. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. You move to Exodus and you see an entire nation being attempted to be wiped out, a genocide against the Israelite people. And the evil and corruption as you see Pharaoh's heart there. And then you'd think, well, it must be because of all those terrible, evil people. But the next chapter, Moses writes of himself that he's a murderer. Moses is like the main guy of the Old Testament. He's like the greatest prophet who ever was. And Moses kills a guy. And on and on and on and on it goes. Mankind has a natural tendency to rebel against God. And this has been passed on to you and me all the way back to Adam and Eve. And this rebellion has had consequences, and the consequences has infiltrated our world and brought about incredible darkness, incredible brokenness, deep in our world and in our own hearts. And it carries over even to today. Rebellion against God. I'm not sure if I could say it any stronger. You know, it's similar to saying like you're a sinner, you're broken, you're whatever. To be called a rebel against God? But you see it all over the Pentateuch, all over these initial 5 books. You see brokenness after brokenness, rebellion, and it seems to get worse and worse and worse. And it carries over even to today. All you have to do is turn on the news. All you got to do is turn on the news to begin to see mankind's rebellion against God even today. Just go home. If you're just like, I want some proof on this message, go home, click on, and go watch 15 minutes. I almost thought about just looking up, you know, I get my news. I'm a Yahoo News guy. I just kind of see that quick. Yahoo, I could do it right now, and we could already start to engage mankind's rebellion. I don't even know what's on there right now, but we could start to see it and unpack mankind's rebellion against God. And not only those terrible people out there, my own heart. I mean, I just think of this week where I was in a small group with guys, and I was able to just share my own covetous heart on some things, just coveted. There was an element of coveting that the Lord kind of brought to my attention in my own life. That I would rebel against his commandments where he says, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's house or your neighbor's, anything that belongs to your neighbor. That covetous heart. And to get to hear that word of forgiveness proclaimed from some brothers, fantastic, praise God. But it's in my own life. And this has been passed on, and it comes to us even today. How many Amber Alerts went off this past week? Beep. I hate that sound, because you know what's going on. It just brings me almost always right away to prayer, like, God, help whatever's going on there. Houston's human trafficking problem. We all kind of know it's there. We don't get it. I don't. But we all know it's terrible and bad and evil. Human trafficking, sex trafficking. Could you imagine the evil? Just the heart that has to be there for that? This is going to get a little dark here. Retail theft is just crazy rampant right now. You've noticed the flash robberies that have been taking place and stuff. Some of those make the news. We had somebody in our community living who worked security for the Porter Walmart here. And she was telling us, she said, man, if you knew every single day how many people are just grabbing carts of stuff and walking out. Not like Walmart way far away. Right here, fill the cart up and walk out the place. Retail theft's got your big Walmarts, your Targets, the big guys saying, we might have to raise prices because of how much inventory gets stolen every day right out the front door. The human heart rebelling against God. You shall not steal. Right out the front door. Listen, some of this, what I'm going to bring you is Wikipedia. So if you want to argue with me, fine. I don't know exactly. I'm getting 2 million some people incarcerated right now in the United States for bunches of different things. 2 million people in prison right now for a whole bunch of different stuff. Not like sinning, just sinning so much so, whatever that, doing so that you would have to get put in jail. You'd have to be put behind bars. Protect kind of society and stuff like that. 2 million people incarcerated. Sexual sin that is absolutely rampant. I mean, the LGBTQ stuff that's out there right now. I mean, just the twistedness of how the enemy has taken this incredible gift of marriage and sexuality and just absolutely fabricated it and tried to feed it to us. The rampant sin that's connected with that. 70% of men that are looking at pornography between the ages of 18 and 34 every single month. 70% of this room, men that are looking at pornography. 50% of pastors, 50% of pastors are looking at pornography on a regular basis. 50%. 28,000 people viewing pornography every second. 28,000 people. Divorce, 40 to 50%, I don't know exact numbers, 40 to 50% of marriages ending in divorce. That number going to 65 to 70% for remarriages ending in divorce. Violence and hatred. Living in communities where people will unabashedly say that they absolutely hate and despise that person that lives down on the corner. Hatred, violence. Mankind's incredible rebellion. 64 million babies killed since 73 in abortion. 64 million? What is I think we have like 344 million people in the United States today. 64 million babies killed. Wars, rumors of wars. All the time. I looked this up. I don't even get exactly how to make sense of this. But I looked up genocide, and I wanted to know how many genocide, think of the word genocide, an attempt to wipe out or an attempt to wipe out entire people groups. I'm guessing I'm getting this one wrong because this is coming from truly Wikipedia. But even if it's partly right, I'm like, what? In my lifetime, Seth Kunze's lifetime, I'm a young guy. I'm 37 years old. I'm a young dude. In my lifetime, there have been 13, according to Wikipedia, genocides that have taken place around the world. Not like killings, like I'm going to try to kill you. Trying to wipe out entire people groups. You're talking in my Seth Kunze's lifetime, since I've been a baby, 13 genocides, different genocides. You're talking 1.5 to 3 million people, depending on the estimates, wiped out because we can't stand those people. We're going to wipe them out. If you add the Bangladesh, which some of you know about this stuff, and Cambodia, Bangladesh and Cambodia genocides that took place back in the 70s, you could easily add another, what did I have here? 6 million wiped out in those two genocides alone. Obviously, you go back a little bit further, you hit the Soviet Union, you hit Nazi Germany, you hit the things that were done to the Jews, to the Poles, to the Romanians. You add some of those in, you start to talk about tens of millions of people wiped out in genocide. Mankind's incredible rebellion against God. Not only that, but then you even have the effects of all this rebellion, sin and death and evil that gets brought in. Right now, 40% of people in this room, that's what it's saying at least, 40% of us, 40 to 50% of us, depending on kind of the gender and stuff like that, is going to get cancer in our lifetime. Take a quarter out, flip it, heads or tails, you're going to get cancer in your lifetime. 1 out of 5 men and 1 out of 6 women will die from cancer in this room, according to the stats. And right now, 100% of us are on track. 100% of us are on track to death. I don't know why that one gets laughed at. It seems like the worst one on there, but for some reason, that one's kind of funny. We are on track to every single one of us dying in this room if we live long enough. This is bad. And you see it right there in the Pentateuch early on. This isn't about heroes that are so great and God really, let's make sure we get those guys in there so that they can be examples for us. No. It is mankind's rebellious heart all the way from the first page of the Bible, well, second in my Bible, the second page in the Bible, mankind's rebellion against God himself. This has been passed on to us today, and we now, follow my thinking on this, we are responsible for this. We are responsible. This is where sometimes here at the dwelling we do public confession, absolution stuff where we confess our sins. And one of our things that we sometimes use will literally, in the phrase, I'll ask you to say this thought. This is a big thought. The thought is this: we are justly deserving of your temporal and eternal punishment. You ever hear that said here at the dwelling? I ask you to sometimes say that. I justly deserve, you're talking to God, I justly deserve your temporal and eternal punishment. That's a huge thought. That we would be so in rebellion against God that we are responsible for it and are deserving of his judgment. That's the biblical, that's what it says. We're deserving of hell, you might say, to kind of say it shorthand. We're responsible. You know, there'd be some teaching out there that would try to get responsibility off of you. And I don't see that as a biblical thing. Biblically speaking, you and I are responsible for sin in our own hearts and in our own lives. You are deserving of temporal and eternal punishment. This isn't the feel-good sermon. I mean, I know of some guys in Houston where you could go listen to that. This is the one that's going to push the idea that I see is a biblical idea that we're deserving of his punishment, justly deserving it. So what does God do? What is God doing about that in the early part of the Bible then, the Pentateuch? What do we see him doing? And I brought out this idea last week that behind this whole series is this really important phrase, that God's work and activity early on in the Pentateuch, in the Bible, early on, is setting the pace for the rest of the reading of the Bible, even to today. His work and activity. So my question is, what is God doing about man's rebellion early on? What do we see him doing? We want to pay attention to that. And two things jump at me for this message today. I'm sure other things could be said. But we see God early on being, follow me here, both just. Justice needs to be done. And we see him being gracious. So, justice. You'll see him come in and drop the hammer on a situation. Man was rebelling against him, so he comes in and drops the hammer. And they are deserving of it. Other times, you see God come in and he's incredibly gracious. Incredibly gracious. And you're just like, why are you doing that? Being so gracious. And this God who is incredibly just, 100% just, and also completely gracious, you see working his activity time and time again as mankind is rebelling and rebelling and rebelling. His justice, his judgment, consequences. You see consequences unfold for mankind's rebellion. Justice being done. Responsibility. Man is responsible. Forgiveness. Patience. Working a plan. See, we actually start to wonder in our culture, you can either have grace and just freely love everybody and everything, or you can only have justice and drop the hammer. See, God has both of these. And he's working a plan all the way back from the Pentateuch all the way through. He's working a plan where both of those come to a head. Where does that happen? Yeah, somebody said, nice job. I don't know if that, yeah. Jesus. We see when Jesus, follow me here, when Jesus dies on the cross, when Jesus goes to the cross and dies, what's he doing there? Let me read to you. Look at this. This is the verse. Listen to this. Romans chapter 5, verse 6. Two little lines in my Bible. For while we were still weak, I'm adding the word just there, at just the right time, Christ died. For who? For the ungodly, the anti-God, the rebellious heart. See, when Jesus dies on the cross, he is paying. He is serving the payment. Follow me on this. Jesus is serving the payment for what your rebellion costs. Justice needs to be served against your rebellious heart. The evil and wickedness in this world, the evil and wickedness in this room. I've preached that so many times. The evil and wickedness in my heart needed to be paid for. Justice has to happen. And when Jesus dies on the cross, he is paying the price. He is paying the penalty. He is paying the cost of what that rebellion is deserving of. Hell. Justly deserving temporal and eternal punishment. Who pays for that? Jesus on the cross. And it's at the cross that as he's paying the price for that for you, he is graciously giving to you new life, forgiveness, the Spirit. See, it's only, I would go so far as to say this thought, it is only at the cross where you will find true, full, 100% justice and graciousness. It's the only spot where you'll find it. Our culture will offer you one or the other. Jesus comes and says, both are at the same time at the cross. Holy smokes. Nothing offers you that except for God. The God back here in the Pentateuch, whose work and activity shows that and demonstrates that and is putting together a plan that moves towards his death and his resurrection for each of us in the room today. Have the people in this room had abortions? Yes. Is there people in here who've struggled with sexual identity stuff? Yes. Is there people who've killed people? Yes. Is there people that murdered people in their hearts and life? Yes. Are there people? Yes, yes, yes. Is there divorce in the room? Yes. Is there? Yes, yes, yes. Pride and wickedness and idolatry. Yes, yes, yes. It's rampant in the room. Or maybe we're the church where nobody does look at pornography. No. The rebellious heart of mankind is present in this room. It's present in me. I can feel it. I experience that battle, that waging of war, the Romans 7 stuff in me all the time. And it's to that rebellious heart that Jesus comes and dies. For me, for the ungodly, to bring me forgiveness. That's why every day I want to wake up. David helped me identify the verse this past week. I want to wake up every day to Lamentations chapter 3, verse 23. Did I get that right? Hashtag boom. Your mercy is new every morning. Every morning I'm going to wake up to his mercy being for me. That's amazing that our God would want to do that. That God is that gracious and merciful. That he would take my punishment. That he would take the evil and wickedness of terrible things that have happened, that are happening, 13 genocides, to bring forgiveness and newness to humanity, and to one day return and make all things new again. And push out of the city, I'm talking a little bit Revelation language here, push out of the city wickedness and evil for all of eternity. And it'll be a place where God comes and dwells with his people forever. Holy smokes, you just got to read the Bible through that lens. It's not, I don't think, a book about these great heroes of the faith that are so great and let's champion them. It's about a bunch of broken people, rebellious hearts, who God continues to be gracious to. And I'm thankful for that. Because I'm right in that great cloud of witnesses. I'm right in the middle of it. We have a good God. Let's pray to him right now. Lord, you are a good God. Oh my gosh, you are so good to us. We praise you for that, Lord. We thank you. We thank you for your incredible grace. Thank you so much that sin and death has been dealt with. Thank you for the hope that we have in you, Jesus. Thank you for life. Thank you for newness. Thank you for forgiveness and mercy. Thank you for that, Jesus. Lord, we just come right now with any sense of rebellion in our hearts right now. We come to you, Jesus, and we just lay it at your feet, knowing that you meet us right there in our ungodliness. You meet us. Be with that person in the room, Lord, that it is so hard for them to overcome that. They're thinking there's no way he could love me. Help that person right now, Jesus, through the power of your Spirit. Open their eyes to experience and know your love to be true for them. Please, God, for that reminder for some of us today, God, that reminder of your love, let it drive us to see you in a new way this week. Let it drive us to see the people around us in a new way. Thank you, Jesus. May we leave today with an incredible posture of thankfulness for this incredible news that you would love us this much. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Praise you. Amen.